So here we have the project inside Logic X. This is the actual project that the final bounced out version of the tune came from. So I haven't taken anything out of the main project, put it in another project just for this tutorial. This is what I was working on all throughout the development of the tune, this whole project here. So everything you see here is in the final tune. So yeah, I'll play it from the beginning just up to the drop, and then I'll solo a couple of elements so you can hear what's going on, the space in between things, etc. Let's go.
Different sounds evoke different feelings.
Okay, so let's start with the drums. There's not actually a lot going on in this tune, drums wise. There's a few layers of kicks, a few layers of snares, but hi-hats, rides and things, it'd usually be a lot more layers to my beats, but this tune just didn't feel necessary to fill up the topic because there was so much going on melodically. So yeah, let's go in with the kick. So I always route my drums, everything basically, so drums, bass, sub, everything to a group bus. So I have a kick bus, snare bus, percussion bus, tops bus, drum bus. I basically love buses, yeah, not the red ones, but the ones in Logic. So yeah, let's start with the kick. It's got a low kick, bit of EQ on there. Cutting out the really low with low 45. That's doing nothing, probably just analyzer, using the analyzer on that one. And then I've made it into a mono track, and I've inverted the phase of both the left and the right. And the reason I do this is because when I'm phasing, well, trying to get my kicks in particular, but this applies to snares as well, in phase with each other. So when you start layering up low frequency content, it's quite tricky because you can make things hit out of phase. So as you can see, this is actually off, just off the grid. And the reason I've done this is so it's in phase and it sounds cleaner. If I take that back, it doesn't really make a difference, but it makes a difference when you change the phase. So that's hitting a lot more cleanly because the actual waves of the file are in phase. That's all down to the inverting the phase of the signal. And I've done that here as well. So effectively, with them both off, they'll hit the same. With one of them on, it will change because one of them's changed the phase. I've done this with the top layers as well. Just usually, it doesn't always take You don't always have to move them around the grid to get them in phase. Sometimes they work. You just have to flip the phase of them. I've done that with this one, which is just a toppy one. The body kick, I've called that. So that's like the main body of the sound. This is the punch, and then this is the low. And together, that's the top kick as well. Together they make one full kick. So not a lot of compression, or not any compression going on at all on the individual hits. That all gets done on the bus. So first thing I've got on the bus is the EQ cut in below 60, and then little dips in the mid-range just to tidy it a bit. More EQ, cleaning up the top. I find using the Pro Q is a lot more precise than the Logic's EQ, so if I need to do some, well, if I need multiple bands, more than 1, 2, 3, 4 dips and things, then I'll use the Pro Q2. Then I've got another EQ, which is from Waves, just boosting the top a little bit. Just giving it a bit of sheen on the top, and then some compression from another Waves compressor. That's just sharpening it up a little bit. And then finally the Camel Crusher, which is basically limiting it, although it's not even peaking at 0 there, so it wouldn't be necessary for me to do that, but I've just put a bit of tube on it to dirty it up a bit, and the mix is all the way down to almost nothing, just so it's clean, but you get a layer of tube on the top, hardly any, but that sounds too flabby now. But with it down, you get the best of both, so you get a nice crunch as well as the clean hit for the low end. So that's the kick. Let's move on to the clap or the snare. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hits there. So the first one, it's just a clap, simple clap, not a lot going on EQ wise, just a little dip around there to get rid of that resonant clappy. Around 1K I sometimes feel that gets a bit messy. And then we've got a current value snare, which is from one of his sample packs on SoundGrid, I think it's called SoundGrid. Yeah, go type that in Google, they've got some sick stuff. It's all different artists collaborate to create sample packs for you to download. You have to be a member, or you have to subscribe or something like that, but you do get some wicked stuff. We've just got more claps, EQ, cutting up the low, tidying up the high mids, another clap, bit of compression on this one, only a tiny bit, and an imager from another Waves plugin, which just spreads it out on the stereo field a bit more, just makes it a bit wider. And then lastly a rim shot, which is providing the low, sort of the low transient to the sound, so the low punch, the low snap really on this clap. And all together they make this. And then obviously they're all getting sent to a bus, and that's where all the most of the main processing happens. So we've got Pro Q again on there, just cutting out resonant frequencies at the top, which I didn't like at the time. Another Waves EQ, this one's really nice, boosting a bit of it. The top's around 8K and then taking away the very, very tops at 20K. Just so it's a bit, it's kind of smoothing it, I can't even say the word, smoothing it out at the top. And then we've got this SPL passive EQ, which is in mid-side mode. So this is the mid and this is the side. So I've boosted, actually there's not a lot of difference between them, except that this is a bit, boosted it a bit more at the side on the 5K mark. just to give it a bit more width, I think. So you can hear the difference that makes. Compressor, the same one I used on the kick, the API 2500. That's probably not how you say it. API 2500. But yeah, this is just compressing, letting the transient through. The attack's reasonably slow, reasonably fast release. Just giving it a bit of snap. And then we've got the SPL transient designer, which is just increasing the attack on the transient a bit more, just so it really cuts through. And then the same thing that we did in the kick, we've got the tube setting on Camel Crusher, and then the mix halfway, just to limit it and give it a little bit of crunch. Let's move on to hats, or percussion bus, as it's named here. Just got your classic every fourth note, every fourth beat even, just to keep it riding, keep it rolling. Boosted a bit of the highs on the channel EQ, compressed it slightly, just to give it a bit of tail. It just sustains the hat a bit more. Another hat, open hat. Yeah, cutting out the low on that one, cutting out any resonant frequencies. See, that would just annoy me. That's why I took it out, because it's just ringing. I don't really like it. I prefer my hats to be quite almost like white noisy, not too resonant in some frequencies. Compression on there, just to makes it breathe almost, and really squishes it so it's almost constantly playing throughout. It's not like a hit, it's more like just a white noisy flowing through the tune. And then tremolo, just to give it some interest in the stereo field, so it goes left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. And then the classic 808 hat, just to keep it riding. What's on there? Another EQ, just shaping it. Light compression, I think, just to smoothen it out a bit. A bit of SPL twin tube, which is just saturation. And then H delay, which is actually being used to give the sound stereo width. So I've put the delay really short, and changed the polarity of the right, or inverted the phase of the right channel, put the mix down. So you're getting the original, but you're getting this delayed signal as well, and it just creates a wider signal. As I move this, it will get wider and wider until eventually you'll be able to distinguish it as two different sounds. You see? Yeah, that's just placing it in the stereo field so it's not dead center. And then, so I think that's it for, oh no, we've got a couple more here. That's just another open hat. Similar sound, similar processing, just squeezing it so it breathes. Tremolo, goes from left to right. Another compressor, which is actually being sidechained to the kick, and I'll explain all that in a bit. And then on the rushy bit, we've got just a couple more layers just to really fill out the top. Some rides, I think these are. Yeah. Just to make it feel a bit more organic, so it's not all digital hats. I like to put in some realism anywhere I can in the tunes. A little shaker there. Same thing again, delay, which is giving it some slight stereo width. Yeah, so that's basically it for the drums. Oh wait, hang on. So yeah, the only thing being sent to the top splash is actually this, which is just a splashy layer. And on the top splash, actually quite a lot of stuff, probably quite unnecessary, but you know. Yeah, boosting around 3K just to give it the shiny top. SSL compressor, not even doing anything. Probably was, and I just turned it down because I didn't like it. Vintage exciter, which is just giving it a bit of shine. Sats in channel. I think I showed this in my last video. I think the drive has just been put all the way just so it saturates the, yeah, just more shine on the top. I prefer to add shine with saturation rather than EQ because you're adding harmonics in a different way and it ends up with that nice noisy result which I talked about earlier, which I like with my hats. And then sidechain to the kick on the main bass, so it gives a pump, just so it flows with the, adds groove really. If I was to turn that off, it would just be constant noise in the top, which I don't really like. I've actually added sidechain to the actual track as well. Double sidechain. But yeah, so that's all the drums covered really. Well, actually, the main drum bus. Let's see what's on that. So we've got the Waves EQ again, taking off the very tops. Just rounding it off, and then the same compressor that we used on the snare and the kick. Just gluing it all together, low ratio, fast release, relatively slow attack. Just giving it glue, and then the chroma tape, which just basically makes it sound like it's been run through some expensive equipment, pretty much, to sum it up. It's very, very slight, but I've adjusted this. When you first load up the plugin, these will be set to 0, and that sounds, to me that just sounds way too much. So I just lifted it until I felt right. It felt right. It just happened to be at the very top, so there's basically hardly any saturation going on, but just that little bit makes a difference when the final mixdown of the tune. Got a little snare roll here. Chroma tape on that, just to make it sound old and vintage. Not too digital, don't really like that. So yeah, that's the drums, pretty much. Let's go into the main bass of the drop, which is probably what I'm sure everybody is most excited about. Who doesn't love bass, eh? So let's start with the main Reese. Let me turn on the keyboard so I can play some notes. So yeah, this is your standard Reese hype. So yeah, there's quite a lot of processing on this. I started it on silent, classic, 2 saw waves probably. Yeah, wait, yeah, one there. Detuned to 34, and then this one detuned 35 minus. That's basically it. Coming out the actual sound. That's how you make a Reese. Bit of distortion, bit of EQ. Take off the reverb. Obviously that sounds dead, but that is the core sound. So the magic comes with the processing. So the first thing we've got on there is an EQ. Just taking out a bit of the mids. And then we've got Space Designer, which is just just sounds like it's in a space, but you can't really hear the release or the sort of the decay. So it's just widening it, basically, making it sound like it's somewhere not so digital, basically. And then we've got LFO tool, which is basically giving it some movement with the actual volume of the sound, so it's almost breathing. And when you do this and put distortion on afterwards, because the volume's changing as it's being distorted, you effectively have more distortion coming out, so it adds with that breathy sort of feel, which I like. So yeah, you'll be able to see here, when I put the distortion on, it just starts punching. Let me turn off the sidechain as well, actually. So yeah, it just makes it breathe, pretty much. And then we've got the Devastor on there, which is just more distortion. Probably I just picked a preset here, Acid Scratcher, and just changed around with these until I liked what I had. And then C4, which is a multi-band compressor, that's just shaping the sound slightly. It's kind of scooping out the mids. Well, 1K to 4K, it's quite a lot of compression. That's just kind of helping with the actual tone of the sound that I wanted. And then boosting the low at 100 to give it some warmth. More EQ. On the top end, and then finally a Pro Q2, which is just taking out the sides. So if I turn on this, you'll be able to hear the difference. It just cleans it up. So way too much side going on there, especially in the low end. That would just cause your mix down to basically turn to shit. So I always scoop out the side. Well, not always. Sometimes creatively you can keep it in there, but if it's a long flat note like that, it's just gonna take up all your headroom inside and just make it sound really flabby. So I cut that out. So yeah, that was the main Reese sound. Oh, wait, what's going on here? There we go. What's next? That was the bounce out version, and I've got some plugins on here which I don't even think I used in the end, so that could be turned off. Yeah, what's next? This. So that was made in Massive, which I think this is the one we're looking for. So yeah, not really that complicated, just LFOs on the Sine Shaper, Bit Crusher, which crunches it. Double Notch, which is giving it the movement. And then Bandpass, which basically just shapes it. A bit of Tube, Dimension Expander to give it some width. Haven't used any extra voices on that. I always do, most of the time I always press this, which means that all your oscillators are going to start at the same time, so they're all in sync and phase. Otherwise you'll play it and it will sound different every time. You can move these around just to see what sounds best. So yeah, not really a complicated sound, that one. Got camel fat on there, which just crunching it up, compressing it slightly, and then trash, which is giving it the top, crunchy top, gentle push there on the saturate setting. Mid is crunchy grunge. Jeez. And the low is clip control. I usually use clip control on the low. I just like how it sounds beefy. Yeah, that was it. A bit of reverb on it. Yeah, that's been sent to the reverb bus, which is here. Use the Valhalla room. And obviously I had reverb on the main sound as well. I turned it off just for the purposes of. Oh, actually, let me add. The way I've done the sub on this bass line, I've sent the signal to my sub bus itself, so you can see the bass bus. You'll be able to hear the sub bus still coming through just from this sound, because I've sent it two ways: bass bus 9, which is the bass bus, and bus 8, which is the sub bus. I don't always do that. Sometimes I separate them, so I'll make a different patch for the sub. But in this case, I wanted to keep the detuned sort of subby sound with this synth, so I sent it to the sub bus. Yeah, so where were we? Back on this. So that was it for that sound. And we got this one. That's also being sent to the sub bus. So you just get the sub from this sound. So yeah, let's have a look at that one. Made it massive again. I probably made this sound from this, but just changed a few things. Yeah, I think I did. It's basically the same, but so you've got the double notch, but it's on a lower cutoff. Bandpass is still sculpting. I've put an LFO on the mix between the two, so you get the top, I think. Yeah, because the filter is on series setting, so it's going to go through that, then go through that. But I've cut off all the top on the bandpass, so I wanted to get the tops back through. So I put the mix, well, adjusted the LFO to go between mix 2 and mix 1. But yeah, tube again, dimension expander, sine shaper. Not a lot of interesting waveforms, just a square and a sine. All the tone of the sound comes from the double notch. That sounds pretty sick. Yeah, could have used that actually, but oh well. Camel fat, sorry. Just dirty in the drop with the tube and some compression. Trash 2 again. Just crunching the top slightly. Pretty much the same settings, yeah. I think these are basically the same settings as this sound, it's just slightly different with the double notch filter. It's just a little adjustment can change the tune, the way, can change the sound so much. And we got this one as well. So these are all kind of bouncing off each other to create one sort of bass phrase, if you will. So this one was made massive again. Wow, I was loving massive during this tune. But you know what? It's sick. Massive is sick. No matter what people say about it, or beginners use it or whatever. Obviously, it's been around for ages, but if you know it, then you use it, man. Like, a synth is only as good as the person using it. So if you know a synth really well, don't let anyone tell you not to use it, because at the end of the day, you're the artist. Anyway, so yeah, what's on this one? Band reject this time. Let's turn all these off and see what difference it makes. So yeah, those are the. It's just one oscillator coming through the scrapyard. Bit of noise, bit of sine shaper again, bit of tube. No stereo width with dimension expander on this one. I think I just wanted to keep that in the middle because these ones were both so wide. So it moves all across the stereo spectrum. Thought I'd keep this one in the middle. Just so it's breathing again throughout the stereo field. Yeah, band reject. What's that doing? That's being modulated by envelope. Yeah, So that was that sound. Let's have a look at the processing. So just EQs, shaping it, taking the top off, not in that way, but you know, taking the top off the high frequencies. Compression, just to squeeze the dynamics of the sound, just so it's not as poppy. It's just driving it almost. Yeah, it is actually. It's on the clip setting on distortion, so it's just crunching it as well as compressing it. Trash 2 again. Just really adding the crunch at the top, taking the bit off again. Well, actually, I've automated that, so the top, it's almost filtering it, but I've done it with automation, so it's taking it off and then letting it breathe again, taking it off and letting it breathe. And then again, not really. Oh, that's been adjusted as well. So that's getting louder and getting quieter. Just to make it breathe again, pretty much. I do that quite a lot with my sounds. I like to make things breathe, come in and out. So it just helps with the 3D sort of feel of a tune. I just love that kind of stuff. And then the same thing I use on that hi-hat before, I've used on here just to give it some stereo width. That's been automated as well. Jeez, I went in on this bit, man. You know, I don't even think about doing this stuff anymore. Well, this tune is a good few months old. You know, when you've got a tune and you've been working on it for so long, you just start doing crazy stuff that's you think, is it really necessary? But I guess I thought it was this time. It starts off as a mono sound, then gives it stereo width. That's being sent to the sub bus as well. Bit of reverb on it, and yeah, that was that sound. So I think that's all the basses actually. That's just a variation of that sound, I think. Yeah. I've probably just changed. Oh, the EQ's slightly different as well, so I've added a resonant peak in there for tone. Yeah, I think the settings will just be slightly different. Or I've used a different waveform actually, form and square. But yeah, like when you make a sound, don't think that's the end, that's the sound. I always will copy it or make a new track from that sound and then just adjust, and that way you can come up with a billion new sounds just by adjusting certain parameters. Possibilities are endless really. So yeah, I think that's all the bases covered. Okay, so let's go into the sub. Sub's quite self-explanatory really, just sine waves I've used. Not a lot of processing, you don't need to, you just put a limiter on. Maybe a bit of saturation here that I've used with this. That just drives it slightly. And then the ozone, which is limiting it, just so it doesn't ever reach above whatever I set it to on here, so 3, -3 even. It's important to change this because otherwise you're going to get distortion. So you want it just to be a nice smooth limiter. And then the EQ, which is just taking out, because obviously I'm sending sounds from the bass to this bus, so if I take this off you're going to hear the tops of the sound, which you don't want, so I just cut everything below 90 here. So you're just getting the sub. So yeah, that was the bass. Let's have a quick look at the reverb bus. So I've cut out the lows on the reverb bus just so it doesn't get too messy. You don't want too much low end information on your reverb. I've cut below 255 there using the Valhalla room, right room, take off the bass multi, which basically just amplifies the low signal, which you don't want, I don't think. And then I've compressed that. Just so it all sounds level. And then that's been sidechained to the kick as well, just to help with that breathing motion, which I've mentioned probably about 10 times, but that's what I like, man. So yeah, that's the bass. Let's move on to some of the intro elements now. So we've got, first thing we've got is, let's go into the pad bus. So these are all the pads. So, is this the main one? This is the main pad. This is from Silent. Just a couple of saws, I think. Yeah. Pulse wave. Being detuned to give width. I had the filter freak, I think, which was opening the filter. And then some compression. Can't even see if it's doing anything because it's been bounced out, but yeah, nothing special really. What other pads have we got? This. What's that made from? This is from Absinthe. So Absinthe has got so many sick pad sounds, man. Like proper deep soundscapey pads. And you can obviously make your own stuff. You can import your own sounds through this. If you go audio in, you can import anything, so effectively this is like a resampler thing. But yeah, Absinthe is one of my favourite synths. For all your atmospheric stuff, this is pretty much bang on the money for me, to be honest. It's got everything I like. Just cutting the low end off. A bit of FabFilter Timeless, which is just a chorus, I think. Yeah, dynamic chorus. And then the Filter Freak, which was obviously filtering it to this in the beginning. And then what other pads have we got? We've got the bass pad. That was also made in Silent, just a few saw waves. 2 saw waves detuned, and then a sine wave underneath just for the sub. CLA2A, just compressing it. Oh, I need to start turning this one. And then a Pro C, which is quite a high ratio, is just flattening it out so you don't get any mad peaks. Because obviously when you detune low frequency sounds, you can get peaks and stuff. But this is just making sure it's all flat. And then again, automating the volume on there, so it's coming in slowly. What's this? The piano? Yeah. So the piano was from Contact, the New York Concert Grand. Yeah, what's on that? EQ again, just cutting out the low, shaping the low mids, boosting the high mids slightly. CLA 76, great compressor. Just squeezing it and giving it character really. Another compressor on there, squeezing it a bit more, just to taste really. When you use compressors, there's no, obviously if you want something to sound punchy, you let the attack through by making a slow attack, and if you want something to breathe, then you have a fast release. But compression is all about what you hear and just to taste really. It's personal preference. And then the filter freak again, which is just filtering it down or up even from nothing. So yeah, that was all the pads. Excuse me. Okay, synths. Lovely, galactic. So we got just some super saws from Serum. Sixteen voices there, jeez. That is a super saw. Yeah, a bit of EQ, cutting out the lows, shaping the mids, compression again just to squeeze it. So it almost sounds like a pad, it's just squeezing the dynamics of the sound. More compression there. And then send it to the reverb, which is the Lexicon Hall this time. Great reverb. Very expensive plugins, but I'm not trying to promote piracy at all, but you can find a bundle of the Lexicon online for free. But obviously, because this is public, I don't condone that behaviour. Each to their own. Don't make plugins so bloody expensive, you know what I mean? Yeah, so that was the super saws. Then we got this ARP, which is almost the main sound. That was made in silent. Saws galore. 8 voices on each, and then another saw. 4 voices, but all being detuned. Processing on that, EQs and things, compression, just to taste. A bit of saturation on it. And yeah, that was the main ARP. Then we got this as well. Just another ARP, but slower. And that was probably made in silent as well. Yeah. Yeah, just saw waves. Classic trancey sounds really. Pulse wave there as well. What else have we got? This. I think there's automation on the LFO going, so it's giving it vibrato at the end of the sound. Lovely. So yeah, that was all the synths in the build up, I think. What's this one? Oh, the Star Synth, the Galactic Synth. This was from Silent as well. I think this was a preset. Yeah, key, big synth. Might have changed it slightly, can't remember, but love that sound. So spacey. So that was all the synths and the pads. What else have we got to cover? Okay, so the vocal in the intro, which you can hear, is almost like a groan. That was a Vengeance vocal, I think, from one of the Vengeance packs. I think I just pitched it down or up, yeah, down by 1 semitone because it didn't fit in key before. And this, I think, is just part of the same pack, but a different, slightly different. Obviously, got loads of delay on that, and that as well, just to put it in the space. Intro hat with a lot of reverb on it, more percussion elements, all from various sample packs which I've obtained over the years, shakers and things. all with lots of delay and reverb. I love the kind of spacey intros where it's all massive reverbs and stuff. Just sets the tone. More hat loops and things here. Just adding layers of sound. Clap. Crowd sounds. This little combination of claps. This as well. Lovely. Probably one of my favourite sounds in the world. I think I use it in most tunes. More crowd sounds. Just to set the tone, give it an atmosphere. Just white noise on the intro. Reverb kicks, hall kicks. Risers. It's all just about adding layers. So just think differently every time you want to add a layer. So like whether that be rhythmically or frequency wise, if you want to fill up the top or fill up the low or fill up the mid. How you want it to sound. It's just all sort of picking out different sounds that you think will fit into the tune really and putting them together. It's like a jigsaw puzzle. You pick the pieces and put them wherever you want. So yeah, just crowd sounds and things like that. There's not a lot else going on percussively in the intro. Now this vocal was founded by Mr. AMC himself. I don't know where he got it from, but obviously I sent this tune to him before it had the vocal in it. And he was like, you know what, I like it, but it needs something in this gap, a vocal of some sort. And anyway, I don't know where he got it from, but he found this and gave it to me amongst a bunch of other vocals, and this one just fitted perfectly, man. Just captured the whole, you know, the whole like idea of the tune and just smashed it.
Sound can touch your emotions directly. And different sounds evoke.
So I've actually done quite a lot of processing on this vocal because it was so messy before. Let's try and find. Well, I'll just get the original file. So this is what it sounded like when he gave it to me.
Emotions directly. Sound can touch our emotions directly, and different sounds evoke different feelings. But there are places in the heart only music can touch. Presenting the Bose Wave Music System.
Lovely. So yeah, let's see what I've done to that. I obviously cut out the parts that I wanted of the vocal because I didn't want chicken sounds and things like that. Just didn't feel it was right for the tune. But who knows, maybe next time I might get some chicken sounds. So yeah, we've got an EQ on there which is taking out the lows. A gate.
Sound can touch your emotions directly.
Actually, I did leave the chicken sounds in there. Probably couldn't get rid of them, but
Sound can touch your emotions directly.
Pro Q2, just shaping the sound. De-esser from FabFilter.
Sound can touch your emotions directly.
Nice. More EQ.
Sound can touch your
Boosting the
emotions.
volume of the actual file just with gain. Nothing really special about that. No need to mention it, to be honest. Compressor again, squeezing the
Sound
sound.
can touch your emotions. Sound can touch your emotions directly.
And then a doubler, which is giving it a lot of stereo width. So, obviously, if you've ever used this, you will know that there's 3 voices. The direct, which is the signal you put into it,
Sound can touch your
and the 2 voices, which can be panned either side, delayed, given feedback, detuned, etc. So I've just put them both either side of the mono signal, so right and left, and then delayed one of them by 23 milliseconds and the other by 43, and that gives huge width.
Sound can touch our emotions
It
directly.
makes it sound sick. And then we've got the camel crusher on there, distorting it slightly. Bit of compression, just to
Sound
squeeze it.
can touch our emotions directly.
And yeah, that was about it for the vocal. I bounced out a version. No, I bounced out the vocal and reversed it, I think. No, what I did, I bounced out the vocal, reversed that, put a reverb on it, a really tight one. Well, not too tight, but about this size. You can sort of, and then you reverse that, so it's speaking not in reverse, but the reverb's been reversed because you reversed it beforehand. I don't know, it's quite complicated. There's a tutorial online of how to do that. If there's not, tell me in the comments and I will do one myself, because it's obviously, that sounds sick. I love that.
Sound can touch our emotions directly. And different sounds evoke different
It
feelings.
makes it sound a bit more trippy and a bit more spacey. So yeah, that was the vocal explained. Let's have a look at some of the build-up elements. That's what we got here. So yeah, just clap rolls and things. Kick roll here, just the standard 909 from the XS24. Gradually getting louder through automation there. And a little vocal.
Hey, 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 hey,
A little yeah in there as well somewhere. I think it's this one. Yeah. So yeah, I like to add sort of vocals in here and there to tunes, just to make it sound a bit more organic. If you've got a tune full of digital sounds with no sort of organic contents and no vocals, no instruments, no sort of acoustic drums in there, like some people may love that, but me personally, I prefer things to sound organic and real. So when you listen to my music, it doesn't sound like, even though I have, it doesn't sound like I've just made it inside a computer. There's like various elements which are real. You know what I mean? It just adds to the depth of the tune pretty much. But yeah, to be honest with you, I think I've actually covered everything there. So we did the drums, we did the bass, we did the pads and things, we did the intro percussive elements like the crowd. Is there anything else? White noise, splashes here and there. I'm sure you can find a tutorial on how to do those. But yeah, I think that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was informative. Yeah, you just had an insight into how I made Aperture. So you can go and make your own version of it now. But yeah. Thanks for watching. As usual, all the do all the subscribing bits and that. Keep following us. We've got so much new material coming out. We've really upped our work ethic recently. We're just dying to explode. Yeah, we've got a lot of material, so stay tuned. S9, Titan Records. This is Lewis signing out. Thanks for watching. See you later.